Today's Locked On Thunder podcast. The Thunder run the league, and I think it's them versus themselves for the rest of the NBA.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, let's be honest about this Thunder team. They run the NBA, and really, no one can stop them in their path to another championship. Let's break down the contenders list together on this show with Brandon Rahbar, 1077 The Franchise, and dailythunder.com. And you can find both of us at the OKC Dream Team podcast on Patreon. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to get on the action right now and be in the middle of it this season, visit FanDuel.com to place your NFL live bets all season long. And also, we have a new club, the Everydayer Club. If you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club for ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, bonus episodes, and so much more, all built for our most loyal fans. Go right now to lockedonpodcast.com/Everydayer Club. You can find more on that in the show notes below. Brandon, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for some NBA Cup quarterfinal action in Oklahoma City.
We're going to get that on Wednesday against the Suns as they re-racket from their last pool play game, playing the same opponent in their first knockout stage game. And so that's what's caused what's been a odd week of NBA scheduling. You'll notice on the schedule again today, just a couple games. And then the Thunder technically right now are only scheduled for one game. However, they will play the Suns Wednesday. If they win, they'll play the winner of Lakers Spurs in Vegas. If they lose, they'll play the loser of Lakers Spurs in their home market and go on from there. So a two-game week, even though right now just one on the schedule officially. But Brandon, sitting here looking at this Thunder team today, I mean, they're 21-1. They haven't played a game healthy or with their typical starting five just yet. Shai is the best player in the league and in the clutch. Jalen Williams returns, shows that he's an elite playmaker, elite defender, and got that efficiency back as a scorer against Utah in his last game out. Chet Holmgren has been vastly improved. And you go down the list here, and we will, everyone on this roster feels so much better than they were a year ago. And most of these improvements, Brandon, I think will really shine through come playoff time. I think that right now they've been a fun storyline that they've gotten better while sitting at 23-1. But you'll feel to what degree they've gotten better when you see SGA, when you see Chet and his offensive ability in the postseason and how different that looks compared to a year ago. And I'm sitting here and I really think that the Thunder just run this league, Brandon. I really think that the Thunder are in a class of their own. And we've done this contenders list before, dating back to the summertime, and we'll go through it again today. And today we're going to lay out how teams can contend with OKC and what those counters will be for OKC against those teams. But as of this very moment, Brandon, it's the Thunder and then everybody else.
It absolutely is. They're in a tier of their own. Like, they're not in a tier competing with the 2025, 2026 teams. They're competing with teams of the past. They're competing right now with the 2016 Warriors, with the 90s Bulls, with what they're accomplishing. Like, those are the teams that are being compared to the Thunder and that the Thunder are being compared to right now, not modern day in this season teams, because I do believe they're in a tier of their own. That doesn't mean in a playoff series, and we'll cover this later, something could happen. A team gets hot. You never know what could happen in a 7-game playoff series. Coming into this season, the Thunder just won a championship, but the roster was the same, right? And so I think we've been conditioned to big moves and to trades and free agent acquisitions or draft picks that are going to come in. The Thunder, it's the same roster that won a championship, but they are improved. And you wonder how. It's like, well, Shai looks like the best player in the world right now. As you said, Chet looks like an all-star right now. He looks like an all-NBA player. He looks like a defensive player of the year, not just a candidate, but he's at the top of the leaderboard right now. Then Jalen Williams misses all season long. He plays 4 or 5 games, and all of a sudden he's right there like getting nominated for player of the week alongside Shai and Chet in the Western Conference. And then, Cason Wallace, he's defensive player of the month for October, November. Just go down the line. Isaiah Hartenstein is improved. It's just wild to see a team that had won a championship, didn't make any sort of roster changes, and they just look so much better than they already were. It's just a wild thing to see, but we're seeing it happen in real time.
Yeah, I mean, this team banked on internal development this offseason, and they've been proven right so far this season. And you can go down the list. I mean, Shai, his three-point shooting this year is remarkable. 5 attempts a game, shooting 44%. Like, this guy can really shoot it from 3, and that changes how you can defend him. He's also been a much better facilitator and passer. While the assist numbers are tied with what he did a year ago, like, the shot quality that he's generating for this team is much higher. And Shai's improved. He just simply has. And then you look at Chet Holmgren. This is a guy who was elite defensively from the word go in the NBA. And even last year, coming off of a fractured hip, like, you can point out a lot of flaws in his offensive game during that run, and he'd do that himself. He's talked about how he looks back at that finals series against Indiana and just says that he looks slow on the offensive end. Defensively, though, you don't win that finals without Chet Holmgren. You do not win that finals without him at the rim and defending in the mid-range. And now offensively, he's shooting a career best 79% at the rim. He's shooting a career best 55% in the mid-range, and he's shooting 36% from 3, which for his size, that's elite 3-level scoring from Chet Holmgren. And I think that when you look at his game as a play finisher, he's rolling to the rim more than he ever has. He's cutting more than he ever has in his career. He's available for these dump-off passes. Like, he's gotten markedly better this season. And these improvements add up and shine brighter when you get to the postseason. And J-Dub, I think, has taken a step forward as a passer. We know that he's an elite defender. He made all-defensive team last year and an all-NBA player. And that scoring, flash that he showed against Utah is only going to grow the more comfortable he gets removed from that wrist injury and wrist surgery. With Cason Wallace, like, this guy is a menace defensively, and he should be a lock for all defensive team this season. He's shooting 45% on corner threes, another area that really you can acknowledge it right now, but you'll feel it more in the playoffs because those corner threes were available to him nonstop last postseason. And they, none of the team could hit threes except for Alex Caruso and Lou Dort in a big moment. It felt like that's why they finished 13th out of 16 teams in 3-point percentage. But that's a big deal. Even the micro skills of like Isaiah Joe being a more comfortable movement shooter and Aaron Wiggins defending forwards better. Like, even those things will compound upon themselves and make this team better come playoff time. You mentioned Isaiah Hartenstein being more comfortable and aggressive as a scorer. And then we know who Lou and Caruso are. They're simply the same version, which is really good for what they need to be for this team. These kind of guys who can help you offensively, but of course will shut you down defensively. And then Ajay Mitchell. I mean, he has been awesome this year, and he hasn't even really gotten to do like the whole like running the second unit thing because of how the because of how the rotation has worked out and because of how the injuries have worked out. But with AJ, he helps you take away your at worst second biggest weakness from a year ago, and probably your first biggest weakness from a year ago, which was your half-court offense. He helps you alleviate that with that secondary unit, and he's so comfortable playing off of Shai, off of J-Dub, and also having the ball in his hands. So you look up and down this roster, we just named everybody who's going to play in the playoffs for the most part, and they've all gotten better, Brandon.
Yeah, and they've all gotten better individually, and then as a whole, as a team, they've gotten better because they've gotten more comfortable with each other. They have a year's worth of experience. We've talked about this as far as like, for example, double bigs. Like, it was a change for both Chet and Hartenstein. They were both used to being the single big in each of their systems for most of their careers. So they're kind of working out the kinks in real time, and that chemistry has grown more and more, and they've gotten better and better. So as they've improved individually, they've gotten more comfortable as a unit. And so it's like this developing like thing where they each individually get better, but the whole gets better. And as the chemistry grows and grows, and then I think the one tangible thing that you can look at and say, yes, talking about internal development and not adding anything from the outside, Ajay Mitchell, you almost could add that because he wasn't in the playoff rotation. He played for the first 30 games last year, then he got hurt, missed most of the season. Then he comes back, plays sparingly in the playoffs, but not really in the playoff rotation because he was coming back from injury. So that is the one thing I think the Thunder have added. So they've all gotten better. And you add a 6 Man of the Year candidate and Ajay Mitchell that, as you said, to your point, kind of shores up the one weakness that they had in the playoffs last year. So it's kind of like good luck. This team won a championship. They've gotten a year more playing with each other, developing that chemistry. You add an Ajay Mitchell, getting better individually, and that's why they are 23-1, despite the fact that the starting five has played 0 minutes together yet.
Yeah, and all these improvements complement one another, and they complement the strengths of this roster already. It's been for the betterment of the individual, but also for the betterment of the team when we list off what this team's gotten better at. And coming up, let's just simply go through the contenders. I've tried to scrounge up, Brandon. I've tried to scrounge up 13 teams that could compete with the Thunder. We're hitting 13 teams here coming up. And I'm going to tell you why. It's really OKC versus OKC. But first, I want to tell you right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because NFL Sundays move fast. And one big play, suddenly everything feels different, like Andy Reid going for it on fourth down. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, the defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines adjusting instantly, player props updating as guys heat up. You can even bet on the next touchdown scores, the drive results, the totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com to place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, so you can too. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. We're here to talk with Brandon Rahbar, 107.7 The Franchise, OKC Dream Team, and often here on Locked On Thunder, which we appreciate very much, Brandon. And for today's show, I asked you to go through your contenders, kind of point out what they can do against OKC successfully and how OKC could try to counter that. And on my contender list, number one, far and away, is OKC's health. Like, while the Thunder have been shorthanded thus far this year, and they've still navigated it brilliantly, Brandon, let's call a spade here. Let's be fair, and I'm nothing if not fair, Brandon. Like, as much as we're talking about how this team and their improvements will look better in the playoffs, it is also fair to say if this team was shorthanded in the playoffs, as opposed to in December, they would not have the same success that they're having right now while being shorthanded. So the Thunder, all that to say, they need to be healthy come playoff time. That's not exactly a revolutionary idea. But the reason why I particularly put health is because, I get why people want to point out how random sports can be and how the Thunder could beat themselves. But what does that mean exactly for this Thunder team? I mean, let's think about this, Brandon. Last year's team, who we just spent 10 minutes telling you is worse than last year's team. Last year's Thunder team was 13th out of 16th in the playoff field shooting from distance. They were horrific at times in the half court offensively, and it really stalled them out, and it really elongated series in the second round in the finals. And they quite literally botched and gave away 2 game ones on their home floor, and yet they won the title. How much more beating yourself can you do than that with a less experienced team, a less talented team because these guys have made internal improvements? How many more mistakes can you make? They're not going to make those same mistakes again. And so with Brandon, I think that it's really just about health because on top of the players getting better, I think that their execution late in games in the postseason will get better. That comes with the experience. And I think that if you look back at that Denver series, for example. Let's say you give away that game 1 against Denver in the second round. Let's say that you lose game 7 on your home court. The talking point around OKC, once the dust settled and the jokes cleared, right? Once you got the serious dialogue about this Thunder team, the dialogue would have been, well, they were just too young. And now they've got to take those lessons and implement them this year. Well, they're going to get to implement those lessons this year as the defending champions. So I don't know how they could beat themselves or how the ball could bounce against them if all that went against them a year ago, on top of Chet being a fraction of himself offensively after fracturing his hip. I don't know how anything else could go against them, except for if they were not healthy in the playoffs. If they're not healthy in the playoffs, everything changes. But as long as OKC is healthy, they're going to win the championship, Brandon.
I agree with that. I think health is by far the number one thing going into the playoffs for the Thunder. If there's anything that could hold them back more so than actual opponents, it would be any sort of health. And to your point, they played that entire playoff run with Chet not 100% because of that hip fracture, still working himself back. And we came to find out later that Jalen Williams was playing with a torn ligament in his right shooting wrist that entire time as well. Didn't stop him from, hitting 40 points in a finals game, hitting that huge shot against Denver. But to your point, they do now have the playoff experience, the championship experience, and you got to believe, based on the sample size of the past few seasons, they are not going to be one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the playoff run. Like, you feel like it can only go up, right? They're going to shoot better. You feel like they're going to shoot better. And we talked about one of the things that they could have used was another creator, playmaker off the bench, a third ball handler. You have that now in Ajay Mitchell. You have guys that have, as we've discussed, gotten better. So when you look at this team going into this playoff series, 23-1, they have a championship under the belt. More so, as no disrespect whatsoever, because they're a great team, more so than the Nuggets, who I think are the best team in the NBA outside of Oklahoma City. More so than the Nuggets, I would say just like internal health, I agree with you, would be the number one factor.
Yeah, and I think that this is where you start to peel back the onion here, because it's like, not only does Denver need to be healthy, which they weren't healthy for the whole 7-game series a year ago, but they also have to have other stuff go right for them too. Whereas with the Thunder, if they're just simply healthy, I mean, they're more talented than you. They're better executing than you, and they're going to win against you. Like, if that's just what it is with Oklahoma City, and Denver is still my biggest contender to OKC that's not named OKC. Like, I still love this Denver team, and I love Nikola Jokic. I think that he's a matchup nightmare, and that's been proven true his whole career. Honestly, for my money, this is the best roster that Nikola Jokic has ever had around him. Folks in Denver might lean toward that title team, and I'll defer to them on that if they agree or don't agree, but I love the roster around him. My love for Cam Johnson as well documented. Jamal Murray, I mean, he can take over games in a hurry, and he's as close to being an all-star that you can be, and I hope that he gets in so we can stop the whole Jokic has no all-star teammates thing. I think that they're a greatly coached team. I think that DA is an awesome coach over there and did a great job in that series on short notice, obviously, because he didn't get the job until like 2 games until the playoffs began. All that being said, the biggest counter to Jokic is the amount of looks OKC can throw at him. And you saw him, he was still awesome. He was still fantastic. Again, I'm a Jokic guy, so don't come after me. But he was still awesome. But of all the playoff series he's ever played, this was one of his worst ones, his most least efficient ones, because the Thunder can put a guy like Chet on him. They can put a guy like Hartenstein on him, a guy like J. Will, a guy like Caruso underneath them. They can just continue to change the strategy against him on the defensive end and make him constantly in this state of adjustment instead of a flow state of getting into a rhythm, because that's the big thing here. Most teams don't have the optionality that Oklahoma City does. So when you're playing a 7-game series and you're playing the same team over and over and over again, for a player like Shai, for a player like Jokic, you get a feel for your matchup, and eventually talent in the cream rises to the top. You're going to exploit that matchup by games 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and win the series. For OKC, though, they can make you never feel comfortable because you don't know which version of the Thunder are going to come at you on any given night from a matchup standpoint for Jokic. So that can help them in a big way. I also think that they're the more talented team, so that helps. And I think that they'll have home court advantage, so that helps. So like now you're looking at the counters and you're like, yeah, Denver's great, but this is a bad matchup.
Yeah, I believe so as well. I agree with you. Denver's the best team outside of Oklahoma City. I like the team a lot too. I think really, as far as like all-star talent besides Jokic, I think that Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray, even though they haven't made any all-star games, they're both all-star talents. So they've got a great big three. And then, like you said, Cam Johnson, Christian Brown, and then they shored up their biggest weakness, which was a bench. So I think that once healthy, they are a really, really good team, a title contending team. I agree. I think OKC is just, more talented, has better depth, and they fit better. And then, like that series last year, obviously, like the Thunder had game one. Aaron Gordon hits that game winner at the end, and it kind of changed the trajectory of the series. I think it ends up going 7 games. Thunder end up winning that one. Obviously, Gordon wasn't healthy in game 7, but, you can't count on a game winner all the time. Like, I just felt like that kind of, if you look at the point differential, I think Thunder were the better team. And I think it played out that way. I think that if they were to meet in the playoffs again, I think we all expect them to, probably in a Western Conference Finals, unless something wacky happens. Denver threw this zone at OKC, and it kind of mucked up the Thunder offense for a couple games. But OKC seemed to have figured out the zone, and they've seen the zone so many times since then, and they've played well against the zone. Like, you can throw something at Shai a few times, he's going to figure it out. And he figured it out. And he's figured out every single defense, trap, double team, triple team, anything a team is thrown at him. And a supporting cast is getting better and better. And so that's why I think, like, in a series, given provided health for both teams, I just think OKC is the better team and wins that series.
Yeah, and I think that by the time we get to April, the Thunder will be begging teams to play zone against them because of what we've seen from Chet Holmgren. I mean, you can put a guy like Chet in the middle of that zone defense. He's a really good decision maker with the ball at reading the floor in the middle of that zone. He's a guy who can pop it in the mid-range. You've seen him over the course of the last couple of weeks get way more comfortable putting the ball on the deck with a tight one dribble to the rim action to get easy buckets. We talked about his 3-level scoring. Like, that's a unique opportunity now for Oklahoma City that was not available to them last year for obvious reasons. So I think that when you look at the Thunder, like, even that, which has been the calling card of like, okay, well, what's the best option to attack the Thunder? Everyone from Cleveland in the regular season to Denver in the playoffs, etc., play that zone defense. I think that it's going to be a welcome sight for Oklahoma City. And I don't think that Denver has enough guys who can play straight up point of attack defense against Oklahoma City. For as much as I love Denver, if you told me that Denver wouldn't have to play OKC in the playoffs, they'd be my title favorite right now. Like, they're my number 2 team. And again, it goes back to health for both sides, obviously. But I think that Denver is the only one in this tier 1 conversation with Oklahoma City of the entire NBA, both West and Eastern Conference. So coming up, let's talk Houston Rockets, because I think that they can actually match up with OKC the best, but they have obvious flaws. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Mint Mobile, folks, go check out Mint Mobile because it's awesome. There's no reason to let big wireless drain your wallet, especially during the holidays. Right now, Mint Mobile is running their best deal of the year. All of their unlimited plans are 50% off. That means you can lock into 3, 6, or even 12 months of unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. It's the easiest way to take your overpriced phone bill and give it to the full Scrooge treatment this holiday season. And what makes it even better is how simple Mint Mobile makes it to switch. No contracts, no nonsense, just real savings and real quality service. Switch to Mint and let's get you the same great coverage at a lower price. Setup takes only a few minutes. You can bring your own phone and number without any issue. The service is fast and simple and super reliable, even on the go. It feels good knowing you're not overpaying and you just get to stay connected with Mint Mobile. Go there right now and turn your expensive wireless into a huge wireless savings future by switching to Mint. Shop Mint unlimited plans at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Limited time offer, upfront payments of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, and $180 for 12 months. Plans require that equivalents to $15 per month. Taxes and fees and initial plan terms only. It's more than 35% gigabytes that might slow down when networks get busy. Compatible devices required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com for details. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, taking you through the contenders of the NBA. Brandon, the Houston Rockets. They're my number 3 team. It's OKC Health, it's Denver, it's the Rockets. Because this is the only defense that I think can legitimately drag Thunder offense into the mud, even whenever they get fully healthy. Like, they haven't even seen Dorian Finney-Smith play against OKC yet, and we saw what they did on opening night to OKC. And so that defense is a legitimate problem for Oklahoma City in terms of getting to how they want to play offensively. The counter, though, is pretty simple. It's their guard depth. It's keeping Reed Sheppard on the floor. Like, Reed Sheppard, as of right now, is one of their best options, and I don't know how you play him in this series. I just don't, because your only basis of trying to win games against OKC is by making the game as messy as possible offensively and winning, 109 to 106 or even less than that, 105 to 100, whatever it is. Like, that's your goal if you're Houston. I don't think you can accomplish that goal with Reed Sheppard on the floor at his size against this Thunder team. And then the other counter is that even if you do accomplish that goal, OKC has more options to bail them out in a rock fight than Houston does. Houston has great options. I mean, KD is incredible. Şengün is incredible. That's 2 guys, and that's the best defense of all time in OKC, trying to shut down 2 guys. Whereas Houston, they've got to worry about SGA. They've got to worry about J-Dub. They've got to worry about Chet Holmgren. And I would trust OKC's role players more than I would trust Houston's role players right now if you were to get the ball out of those 3 guys' hands. With Houston, there's only 2 guys who needs to have the ball leave their hands, and I don't trust their options outside of those 2 as much as I trust OKC's. So there's a lot more counters than benefits to Houston, and that's what leads them to 3.
Completely agreed. I think that they're the second best team behind the Nuggets as far as contenders against OKC goes. I would think that the one avenue they would have to really become a true threat would be as if they make a move at the trade deadline and get another guard in there, get another point guard in there. Because I agree with you, Reed Sheppard, he's really shown some flashes and he's really grown this year. But his size, his defense against this OKC Thunder team, and I think that's one of the biggest keys that could be an issue for Houston. Their size is great. The rebounding could be an issue for OKC because they're a great rebounding team. Their defense, obviously, all great. But the issue is they have, I feel, too many one-way players. Like, whether it's like a Reed Sheppard, who's great offensively, or it's like an Amen Thompson, great defensively. And yes, his offense has improved, but like in the playoffs, he's not a shooter. So like you're playing a little bit, you're clogging the space a little bit there if you're Houston. And this is the OKC Thunder defense we're talking about. And if there's any sort of weaknesses on offense, if the Thunder aren't respecting, Amen's, shooting or Şengün shooting, I know that's much improved this year. We'll see if that continues throughout the season. Or if they're not respecting Reed Sheppard and attacking him and hunting matchups on the other end. I just think, as great as Houston is, if they don't make a move for another point guard, ultimately they have too many one-way players, and Thunder is going to attack that on both sides.
I completely agree. And I think that Houston is a team to monitor as we're about to hit the point where everybody becomes trade eligible in the NBA and what they can try to do to shore up that guard depth. But as of this moment, I just think that Houston, while they can make this a competitive series, and I think that they could have their version of the 24 Dallas series where it's like, Houston lost the series, but the point differential was negligible. For the Dallas Thunder series, it was 0. I don't know if they can get to 0, but it was negligible, and they're in the right direction, and they just need to keep building from here with Houston. I think it can be to that degree. I really like Houston. I want to point that out, but man, it's just really tough to beat this Thunder team. And that brings me to the Lakers. Like, the Lakers are the last team I have a real big diatribe about because they do have Luka, and they do have Austin Reeves. And if Ayton is locked in, taking advantage of Luka's gravity, especially in the pick and roll, like Ayton did with CP3 and the Suns around to the finals, like that could be a problem. Plus they have LeBron, and it comes down to shot variance for them. Like, we've seen this. Like, this is part of the counter, but also part of the positive for the Lakers. They have some guys who I wouldn't be stunned to see have red hot series from beyond the arc against OKC. And the counter is OKC is just a better team. And oftentimes the better team wins in the playoffs because that's how the 7-game format is set up. But their defense has shown that they can shut the water off from Luka as a scorer, both in this regular season, both in that 24 playoff run with Dallas. Like, Luka was not the problem scoring the ball. Kyrie was not the problem scoring the ball. It was the facilitation that those guys had to get the ball to PJ, get the ball to Derrick Jones Jr., and let those guys hit from three. And if those guys didn't hit from three, the Thunder would have won, and the Mavericks don't go on that finals run. But they did hit from three, and Mavericks won the series. It's going to be the same way in LA. While you do have to worry about Austin Reeves, and you do have to worry about LeBron, it's going to come down to, can the Lakers role players hit their shots, hit their open looks in the corners? And if they can win some games. If they can't, they're going to get gentlemen swept or losing 6.
Yeah, I think the Lakers, the upside, the ceiling, just because you do have Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, offensively, they can put up a lot of points most nights. And the ceiling is very high with those 3 guys. And, if you're talking in a 7-game series, one team can get hot. One team has a couple bad shooting nights. You just never know. That said, the counter is, I just don't trust the Lakers defense. Like, ultimately, you're talking about, again, this Thunder defense usually slows down or takes away your leading scorer, gives them fits. So, Luka's going to struggle to his standards, at least. He's going to get his, but to his standards, probably struggle against this Thunder defense. And they're going to focus on LeBron and Austin Reeves after that. And then, like you said, the Lakers will have to trust the role players. And then on the other end, like, you're playing Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves heavy minutes because you have to keep up. You got to have those guys playing big minutes and putting up big points. But what's your defense going to look like against Shai and J-Dub and Chet and Ajay Mitchell and all the weapons that the Thunder can throw out, and, the 3-point shooters and the spacing and the speed and the athleticism? I just don't know. As great offensively as that Lakers team can be, I just know on the other end, like, what it can be. And if your greatest strength is your offense and star power, I mean, the Thunder have the best counter for that. And as far as, like, one of the greatest defenses the league has ever seen.
Yeah, and they also have the star power in their own right. I mean, I think that Chet will be an all-star this year for sure. I think that J-Dub, of course, has proven he's an all-star, all-NBA, all-defensive player. And then Shai's the best player in the world, or at worst, 1B behind Jokic. One of the two, the semantics of that don't really matter for this conversation. With Minnesota at 5 is who I have. Ant is only going to get better from here as a player. I think that Anthony Edwards had a much better series than people give him credit for in the Western Conference Finals last year. Like, this was a guy who made all the right decisions against a Thunder defense that is, like, prone to forcing you into the wrong decisions and forcing you into turnovers. He set his teammates up. His teammates couldn't hit shots for him. And he obviously could not score the ball at his level. That's a byproduct of the Thunder defense, though. We just talked about that with Luka Doncic, and Luka Doncic also hasn't been able to score the ball against, to his level against Oklahoma City. And so I think that Ant was better than he gets credit for. The Rudy minutes were actually good whenever he was on the floor, but it was hard to keep him on the floor. But they had a bad shooting series, and Julius Randle cannot play to his level against OKC swarming defense. He can't handle it. He turns it over, and he ruins momentum. OKC has the best player in this series. They have the best team in the series, and that's all the counter that you need.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Western Conference Finals last year. I mean, the Thunder took care of them in 5. Yes, there was that one game in Minnesota where the Wolves rolled them. Other than that, the Thunder just completely dominated the series. And all that's happened since then is the Wolves lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a very key role player for them, and have not replaced him. And the Thunder have only gotten better since then. So I just don't see any sort of avenue where the Wolves can beat the Thunder in the playoffs as currently constructed, provided health, blah, 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 all those things. I just don't see it. I just don't see an avenue.
And then it comes down to me, the only other 2 teams that you can even mention by name in the West. Every other team that's not mentioned by name has 0 chance to contend with OKC. Absolutely 0 chance. The only 2 other teams to name is the Warriors and the Spurs. For the Warriors, I mean, Steph and Jimmy can dominate a series. The counterpoint is their depth is terrible. Front court versus front court, if both teams are fully healthy, their front court is terrible comparatively to OKC. The Thunder defense is not going to let Steph and Jimmy have a fantastic series for the length of a 7-game series. They'll have fantastic games. Jimmy will get to the line 12 times in a game or 15 times in a game. They're going to win some games in that series. It could go to 6, but they can't beat OKC. With the Spurs, I'm very curious to see this matchup, whether it's this week or, of course, the week of Christmas. But Wemby is fun. Their depth is intriguing. But come on, like, the Thunder are just the much better team.
Yeah, I mean the Spurs, I think, are going to be a threat here in a couple of years. Like, and
Yeah,
honestly,
I agree.
it's been really impressive how good the Spurs have been without Wemby this year. Like, obviously, he's a generational player, and he's only getting better and better. And with him back, I mean, we'll see if he plays in the Cup games or not, and if we see like a little preview to Christmas Day in the Cup semifinals. So I think the Spurs are impressive. They got a lot of really nice pieces. I really like the Wemby and De'Aaron Fox. He's been great pairing. And then, Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper. There's so much potential and upside there. But I think that's really going to come to fruition here in a year, 2 years, 3 years, more so than these playoffs right now. This is like the playoffs where they get their experience. And then, yeah, as far as the Warriors go, I agree with you. Look, Steph Curry, Thunder fans don't need any sort of reminder how hot he can get in the playoffs. And then Jimmy Butler and his generational whistle and Draymond, like they have talent and they have some role players that any given night can go off. It's just really hard to see, the Warriors beating the Thunder in a series. But I think that they could knock off a couple of other teams like they did last year when they upset the Rockets in the playoffs, if they're healthy.
Now, just in the Eastern Conference, I had to add decent few teams here. Cleveland, if they figured it out and got to the finals, their size would be interesting to match up with OKC. Detroit, Kate is an absolute killer, and their defense is awesome. I think that on the court, like the best basketball might end up being like if you could just handpick the best basketball series, taking away market size, taking away television ratings, whatever, the best basketball series might just be OKC, Detroit, if you had to pick one from each conference. I love Detroit's defense. I love Cade, and I like their role players. Orlando is a great defense, bad offense. Atlanta, I mean, Trae Young against this team would be devastating. I mean, Trae Young would be awful against this team defensively for Atlanta. And then Boston, I love Boston. I love their defense. But the problem with Boston is they need Tatum to be back, and not just be back, but be efficient against this Thunder historic defense. I think that it would be a miracle if he can get back and play at that level to play against this Thunder defense. And then you have New York, who a lot of people love. I love them as a Eastern Conference team, but when we're talking about the Thunder matchup in particular, you have to play Brunson and Cat, and also how can you play Brunson and Cat? Because those are your two best players. You've got to play them. They've got to play 40 plus minutes a night in the finals. Against this Thunder team, though, they are going to be exploited over and over and over again on the defensive end. So I just don't know how New York would compete with OKC either. So of those teams, who in the Eastern Conference would you consider to be the biggest challenger?
Yeah, I would agree with all of your assessments. I think the Knicks are intriguing if the Giannis trade rumors are true, and if they were to
that is subject to change the whole dynamic here.
Yes. 100%. If the Knicks, obvious huge caveat here, if the Knicks were to get Giannis, that would be a game changer, I think, for the Knicks. Obviously, still favor the Thunder, still pick the Thunder in that series, but it does change like the dynamics and all those things as far as the Knicks go. I think Detroit's really interesting. I agree with you. They've been such a great story. I think they're for real. I think they have great depth. Cade has been playing so great. It's just hard to see, them competing with the Thunder over 7-game series. And the Cavs are just so confusing because I had them coming out of the East this year, coming into the season. I know they've dealt with a lot of injuries, and I know that's a part of it. But even outside of just the injuries, they don't look like the same Cavs team as last year. So it's hard to predict them at this point as well. So really, the only team in the East that I could see being any sort of challenge would be the Knicks after a Giannis trade.
Yeah, that would be certainly worth changing the picture here for OKC. And we can do this if and when it happens, but I wonder how that would change our listing if we were just going to list them out from each conference of like Denver still 1, New York at 2. Like, what's the listing there? We can cross that bridge if and when we get there. But Brandon, thank you for joining us again on another fantastic voyage here on Lockdown Thunder. Go check Brandon Rahbar at dailythunder.com, 1077 The Franchise, OKC Thunder Roundtable, and the OKC Dream Team, where you can find both of us. Brandon, thanks again for joining us. And until next time, folks, be good and be good to one another.